Business owner who understands what it means to sign a check on the front. I'm also a father and to 3 beautiful children who I want to see have a future here in Monroe. We've served you faithfully these last 4.5 years, and we want to continue the work.
Mr. Mayo, you're now up for 30 seconds.
Good evening. I'm Jamie Mayo, former mayor of the city of Monroe. You elected me. I served for 19 years. We brought 2,000 new businesses here at the city of Monroe. We also had a record fund balance when I left office. We also built a new public safety center. We did so many projects. A lot of those projects we'll talk about tonight, but we do ask for your vote and your support on March 23rd. Early vote is March 9th through the 16th. Let's keep Monroe proud again.
Ms. Cooper, the floor is yours. You now have 30 seconds.
Good evening. I'm Betty Ward Cooper, and I'm running for mayor because our city is in a crisis because of the lack of strong leadership, and also because crime is out of control. We don't feel safe anymore, and it's hurting our economy and hurting our growth. We're also a city that's divided, but I believe we can come together to end that crisis. My plan will be to stamp out crime at its roots through community policing, and will enrich our economy by attracting and growing new businesses and maintaining and keeping existing ones. Let's work it together.
Thank you to all of you candidates, and thank you for your willingness to serve our community. It's a big honor to be here with you. So let's get on to the questions. Jamie, this one will start off with you, and the rest of you will have an opportunity. What motivated you to run for mayor, and what unique qualifications or experiences do you bring to the table? Mr. Mayo,
Well, I think it's pretty obvious what experiences that I have in qualification. I am a graduate of University of Louisiana in Monroe, and I've served as mayor for 19 years, and I've served as city councilman for 6.5 years. There's no question, as I mentioned, there's so many positive things that we've done for the city of Monroe, but what motivated me is the crisis we have as it relates to crime. My grandson is afraid now to come into the house because there was a drive-by shooting in my neighborhood. But there's shootings, violent crime all over the city of Monroe. In fact, we have 500% over the national average as it relates to violent crime. And when my opponent, who is the current mayor, says that crime is down, we know that is not true, especially in many parts of our city, particularly the south part of our city. So we know how to address crime, to deal with not only law enforcement, but also to deal with preventive measures and rehabilitation measures. Those are the type of things that's got to be done. We have a comprehensive plan in place, and we're going to get it done. God bless you all.
Ms. Cooper, it's your turn. Your time starts now.
Well, I believe that strong leadership is very important. Being an effective leader that's able to bring our divided city together is important. You know, a mayor that can address the issues that's voiced by our citizens. Leaders that need to lead and not just give excuses. So a strong leader being effective in office so that we can annihilate the crime problem, we can bring about economic development, which includes small business development and disadvantaged business enterprises like minority business and women-owned businesses. And we can bridge this divide, not allowing anyone or one-sided suffering or one-sided prosperity. Both parts of the city developed at the same time.
Mr. Ellis, you now have 60 seconds.
We've built our campaign around promises made and promises kept. 4 years ago, when you sent me in office, we heard the cries about crime being out of control. You were tired of your neighborhoods flooding. You wanted a better quality of life. And so we've made historic investments into increasing the pay and the quality of life for our police officers, which we're seeing record applications for Monroe PD. Now we can be selective about who we can hire. I'm proud to be endorsed by the Monroe Police Union. This is one of the first time that most folks know about that happening. Also, we're going to continue investing in our quality of life, as seen in our parks and recreation plans that are turning dirt throughout the city. And also, we're going to continue to invest in crumbling infrastructure that we inherited, such as the Texas Standard for Trunk Line, other drainage projects. But we're going to continue doing what we've been doing in office and continue to be successful.
Thank you. Now on to question number 2. And this one we'll start with Ms. Cooper. What are your top priorities for the city, and how do you specifically plan to address them if elected? You have 60 seconds.
My top priority is reduction of crime. We don't have a safe city. People are afraid, and we got to take back our streets from these criminals. I have a plan to do that. Only candidate with a plan. Community policing approach is my plan, and experts agree that it's most effective to meet, and we got to meet the demands of businesses too. And we want to attract more businesses to Monroe, and a significant reduction in crime, and having a trained workforce will do that.
Okay. Mr. Ellis, you have 60 seconds to address that question.
My priorities are the same as 4 years ago when we came in. You sent me into office to fix 3 things: crime, infrastructure, and quality of life in our city. And you can see the investments that are already made. We're just proud to say that we've made those investments. We're going to continue with those investments, and we're going to keep growing a Monroe that our families can find a future in.
Mr. Mayo?
Well, there's no question crime has not been fixed. We've had over 70 murders since I left office, but my top priorities are reducing crime, as well as improving the infrastructure that we have, improving education, local education, and I have a comprehensive plan for that, and also economic disparities, because we have so many businesses that are not being treated fairly. In fact, they're not being engaged in. There are many priorities, but those are my top priorities. We're going to have 1,000 jobs to address our summer youth program, because we don't have workforce development for youth the way we had it when I was mayor. I think we only have about 30 jobs now. We had about 200 jobs when I was there, but we're going to have 1,000 jobs for our summer youth to keep our youth off the street.
Thank you. Now let's move on to another question here, and that is, and we'll start back with Mr. Ellis. What strategies do you propose for addressing issues of, first, affordable housing and the increasing homeless situation we have in Monroe? You have 1 minute.
The affordable housing issue was severely hindered by one issue, is the Texas Standard for Trunk Line. We weren't able to serve will serve letters for development. One of them is the Plum Haven Estates. We couldn't give them a will serve letter because there was no capacity on that sewer line, a line that had been clogged for 15 years for over 2,000 feet. So we fixed that, and we're going to move on and help developments like that continue within the city of Monroe. We'll also partner with our local wraparound services, such as the Homeless Coalition, such as the Wellspring, to continue. They have a comprehensive plan, and it's our job to help them work that. One of the challenges that we face right now is the lack of mental health facilities here. We've already been talking with our partners to figure out ways that we can advocate on the federal and state level to bring those services here, and that has been a challenge, and that's one we're going to address when we get back in office.
Mr. Mayo, you have 1 minute.
Well, there's no question that affordable housing is an issue here, but I want to say that while I was mayor, we were able to help with constructing about 11 new neighborhoods, and several of those were affordable housing. The Bible says the poor will be with you always, even to the end of the earth. And so we have worked with them quite a bit. We've worked with those that are homeless. We've worked with the Salvation Army. We've had programs throughout the city in which we had a benevolent program in which our city employees were part of. So we work with all of the different agencies to help the homeless and also support affordable housing. We'll continue to do that when you re-elect me as mayor of this great city of Monroe.
And Ms. Cooper, your minute starts now.
Yes. One of my platform items is definitely affordable housing. And we want each one of our citizens to be able to realize the American dream of owning their own home. But the issue regarding homeless, I'm glad it was brought up. You know, homelessness, there are a lot of reasons for that. A lot of times it's unemployment, where people don't have jobs and with benefits. And so that's why economic development is a part of my plan. But another reason for this homelessness could be the mental challenges of our residents. So we need to make sure we take care of them and make sure they're getting the services they need. where they won't view living on the street as their only option. And so we'll be able to evaluate our mental health services that we offer, and we will bring those professionals to the table, and we will come up, and even our stakeholders that will have say-so in coming up with the right kind of services for all of our citizens.
Candidates, this one is an interesting question that really came from lots of different people, as you would imagine, on this one. And this is something very important, not only for city government, but also our community. And that is, and this one, we're going to start with you, Mr. Mayo. How do you plan to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, not only within city government, but also throughout our community? So you've got 1 minute, sir.
Well, there's no question that that is very important. In fact, while I was mayor during the U.S. Conference of Mayors Convention, we talked a lot about that, and everybody knows that I'm very much interested in diversity. In fact, I have that in my staff. I'll continue to do the things that I've done in the past, but as it relates to our community and my tenure, I will make sure, starting with our business community, that it's diverse. And that's why I said that diversity, equity is very important, and inequality is something that's happening now. If you don't believe me, you need to ask the Monroe Regional Black Chamber of Commerce. We will work with the Monroe Chamber of Commerce, but also there is an organization who has almost 300 members that need to be worked with, and currently it is not being worked with.
Ms. Cooper, you have 60 seconds.
Yes. Most people know a big part of my vocabulary is all about diversity and inclusion and stakeholder input, because that's going to help us to involve all of our citizens, because we need that inclusivity, getting input, because we have some citizens that are very capable and can help us in making the right decisions for our citizens. And so, yes, diversity at every level, and we want to make sure our stakeholders know we want them at the table, and that's all of our stakeholders, because their input is valuable to us.
Okay. Mr. Ellis, you have 1 minute.
Yeah, in my time as mayor, we've had multiple community sessions based around this. As a matter of fact, we're a part of Bloomberg Philanthropies Thriving Community and City Start programs right now, looking at racial equity. It's looking at financial empowerment for minority communities, and that discussion has been had throughout my term, and we're looking for ways to address that. But that first comes back with a feedback loop from your community, and we're very proud to say that we've done multiple outreach for everyone in our communities. And when I think about inclusion, I also think about people with different abilities. ADA accessibility is a huge piece to our community. I've seen the challenges. My daughter uses a wheelchair, and so if you noticed, every one of our programs, from a inclusive playground to our sidewalk projects, all include ADA accessibility. So inclusivity is a big topic, but we want to be sure that everyone has an opportunity here within the city of Monroe.
Giving our candidates a quick break from questions now. Don't forget, you still have time to tell us what you look for most in elected officials. Just scan the QR code on your screen to submit your answers. And here's a first look at the results so far. 23% want a mayor that communicates, 41% would like a mayor that focuses on management, and 36% are looking for a mayor that is consistent. Be sure to get in your answer. We'll take one more look at the results before seeing your final answers.
Well, thank you, Ashley. Now heading back to our questions. I think everybody can take a deep breath as we get into the next round of this. You're all doing wonderful so far. This one, we'll start off with you, Ms. Cooper, and you'll have 60 seconds. How do you intend to foster economic growth and job creation within the city?
Yes. Well, when I think of growth, growth means everything that helps us to move our city forward. In other words, and unity of the citizens. That's important. And bringing about economic growth, that's important. Bringing youth development programs in for delinquent youth that are involved in crime. We have to give them a better outlook on life and job skills so that they can be more hopeful for the future. And also reducing crime. That's my #1 platform item. All of this to help our city move forward is important. And it's going to produce growth and quality of life for all of our citizens.
Okay. Mr. Ellis, you now have the floor for 60 seconds.
Well, the city is going through an economic revival right now. We've added 450 new businesses, and that equals about a little over 2,000 jobs within the city. Year-over-year sales tax increases, which means it's working. We have a healthy economy right now. You've seen new additions to our economy like Amazon, new service through Amtrak, and we've also worked with local businesses to help them expand their business that's already been here for years. One of the very encouraging things that we find when we go in is people are pleasantly surprised to be able to see a mayor walk through the door and sit down with them and ask them what their needs are. Many of them have said, we've been here for 40, 50 years and never seen anyone from the administration come in. So you can't expect growth without supporting those who work here first and change the way that they talk about doing business with your city.
Mr. Mayo, your 60 seconds starts now.
Well, just look at my past performances. Look at CenturyLink. Lumen, I know they're gone now, but look at all the jobs that we brought in. Look at IBM. Look at Vantage downtown. Look at all the other major corporations and large businesses and also small businesses and so forth. As I mentioned, we brought in 2,000 new businesses equivalent to 10,000 jobs. Economic growth, we need our local businesses to be able to grow their business by adding on to their business that they already have. If they have 3 employees, maybe they can add on to 5, and also capital investment. And so those are the things that we did that was comprehensive as it relates to addressing the business environment, and we'll continue that once you re-elect me as mayor, your mayor again. Thank you for the question.
Moving on to the next question, and this is sort of a building upon that previous question. How will you work to build strong partnerships with neighboring communities and other regional governments? And you could also include businesses there. So let's start off with Mr. Ellis. You have 1 minute.
Yeah, some of the partnerships locally that I'm very proud of that you could see the fruits of our labor. One is with our largest economic driver in ULM. We've worked with them to help expand their small business incubator system there that will soon be turning dirt. The Biomedical Research and Innovation Park to one day build treatments to the things that they research in the pharmacy department. We lobbied in Washington together to make these things happen. On a statewide level, we're talking with other mayors about using our regional assets to be able, like our airports, to be able to attract people like drone operators or A&P mechanics. But nationally, you saw the first time ever across state lines that cities have worked together and signed CEAs to be able to bring Amtrak service to connect mega regions that will ultimately grow our community. And so I think partnerships are key, and I think that's something that was the foundation of our time in office, and I think you could see the fruits of those labors.
Mr. Mayo, your 1 minute starts now.
Just look at what we did while I served as mayor. We had the Town and Gown Initiative, where we not only worked with ULM, which is where I attended school, and received a degree, BBA, I also played basketball on a championship team, but also the partnership that we had with our Town and Gown Initiative with Grambling State University, Louisiana Tech University, also Louisiana Delta Community College. We worked with all of them, and we also gave them funding through our Economic Development Fund that helped them in a huge way. That is very important because not only those individuals that are local that spend money here, but also those around us do the same thing. Businesses are very important. We also work with businesses throughout, not only throughout the region, but also throughout the state and throughout the country. My relationship with the federal government, the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and all the others that we have through the state government with John Bell Edwards, our former governor, and also local elected officials, our legislature, we did a lot of good things for our community, and we'll continue to do so. Thank you.
Ms. Cooper, you have 60 seconds for that question.
Developing partnerships must be a part of our comprehensive plan to move our city forward so that we can realize quality of life for all of our citizens. And when I think about partnerships, I'm talking about with every sector. You know, as a city government, we would work with our clergy, our nonprofits, for-profits, our educational institutions, even social organizations, because we're all in this together. and we're to be one unit to bring about the changes we need. I know with the Monroe City School Board, we have many partners that we've collaborated with, and it's made a great difference. And we'll continue that concept in city government.
Thank you. And as someone at ULM, thank you all for your commitment to working with the university. I have to say that, otherwise I may not have a job tomorrow. So
Go wow.
we're about halfway through our questions so far, so let's keep it going, candidates. They want to hear from you, not me. What steps, and this will start with you, Mr. Mayo, what steps will you take to improve infrastructure and address transportation challenges? You have 1 minute.
Well, let's look at the consent decree that the city was put on by the Environmental Protection Agency years ago. In fact, many of the projects that we helped to do a rededicated tax, that was the street tax, and all of the infrastructure that you see that's going on, almost 100%, came because of the effort of myself and also our former late Mayor, Melvin Ramman. So you see a lot of that going on. Transportation issues, the bi-party infrastructure bill that was passed by Joe Biden, our current president, and that money, $1 trillion, not all of it is coming into the city of Monroe. I wish it was, but that is helping in a huge way too. So there's also an infrastructure commission that's part of the city of Monroe, and so there's a lot of funds there. So this mayor is currently blessed with all the funds that my administration, helped establish, and he's reaping the benefit and taking the credit. Thank you.
Ms. Cooper, it's now your turn. You'll have 60 seconds to address the issue of infrastructure and how you may have plans to improve transportation.
Yes, we have a lot to do in this area for sure. When I think about our water system, our sewer system, our roads and bridges and streets, a lot of work to do. And so we know that a lot of our help comes from the federal government, state government, and, you know, sometimes that's a slow process to get the help we need. But we will definitely use our resources efficiently to bring about the change needed for our infrastructure because it's in dire need.
Mr. Ellis, you have 60 seconds. Your time starts now.
Yeah, I don't mind finishing things that other people couldn't, and also taking care of the things that we started. You can go to the State of the City, Monroe.com, to see exactly what we've been up to, and you can see the millions of dollars that have been spent. And did we mention the last 3.5 years? It's exhausting, but I'm going to tell you what the biggest challenge we faced was the Texas Standard for Trunk Line. Again, a major hindrance to growth that we couldn't give will-serve letters to new businesses coming to us because of a 17-year project that no priority was put around it, and we couldn't move it off center. The other one is the flooding infrastructure. We have moved the largest underground cleaning and flooding infrastructure project in the history of the city of Monroe, and it's underway right now. Cleaned over 10 miles of subsurface drainage, catch basins, and we're going to continue to do it. And if you look at the $420 million capital program that we have, it's going to go, and we're going to keep spending it, and it's going to show up in your neighborhoods.
Continuing tonight's Monroe Mayoral Debate, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about public safety. This is something that seems to be on everyone's mind here. What do you imagine you could do as mayor, and certainly collaborating, working with neighborhoods, working with businesses, to reduce crime rates in the city? And Ms. Cooper, let's start with you. 60 seconds.
Yes. Crime is my #1 platform. And as I briefly mentioned, a community policing model is what I'm advocating. And it is a model that's proven to be effective. And that's where law enforcement agencies and the citizens work cooperatively together to be effective to make sure crime is reduced significantly. And this is a proven model. The experts agree. And we must have our people safe and knowing they're safe, feeling safe, so they can go about their daily lives. So, yes, that's definitely an issue.
Mr. Ellis, you have 60 seconds. The floor is yours.
The previous solution was to defund the police. reduced their budget by $2 million and slashed their workforce by over 40%. They didn't have strong leadership. They have it now. You can see that in the number of police officers that are on the streets and the confidence that they put in me as mayor to continue that work in our leadership. But also this starts with quality housing again. It is more of a comprehensive plan. You're absolutely right, Ms. Cooper. But it also starts with investing in youth services like our Boys and Girls Club initiative for after-school tutoring and mentoring. It also starts with working with our wraparound services like Ascent to be able to do de-escalation training programs within our community centers for our rec center supervisors. But it's all going to come down to where you put your investments, and we will continue to invest in police. We will continue to invest in our youth and a quality of life here in Monroe.
Mr. Mayo, you'll have 60 seconds to tell us how you plan to improve public safety.
Well, there's no question that Donald Trump is coming out of him. He supports him 100%. Nobody ever said that we're going to defund the police. And I don't know where he gets that from, that smoke and mirrors. And he knows that, and you shouldn't tell that lie on TV. But the bottom line is public safety is very important. We've talked about that. Again, I am tired of seeing all these murders, these young people, these women that's murdered. And the things that we have done with the city of Monroe, not only the police department, all the raises we've given, $10,000 they received in their 25th check. They've got a state-of-the-art public safety center. They have nice vehicles, training, everything that we put in place. ShotSpotter, we brought that. He's taking credit for that. But also with public safety, we're talking about the fire department. They didn't endorse him because they wouldn't endorse him. Just like two other unions wouldn't endorse him as well. One endorsed me, one endorsed Ms. Cooper, and he pulled the police arms to get them to endorse him, by the way, against the law because they're civil service. Thank you.
Giving our candidates another break from the questions now. You still have time to tell us what you think is most important and what you look for in elected officials. Just scan the QR code on your screen to submit your answers. And here's another look at the numbers. 19% want a mayor that communicates, 53% would like a mayor that focuses on management, and 28% are looking for a mayor that is consistent. And be sure to get your answer in. We'll take a final look at results just before our candidates give us their closing statement in a few minutes.
Thank you, Ashley. Well, let's get back to some of the questioning now. And since crime was such an important issue, I think, and arguably one of the more contentious subjects, specifically, what are the types of crimes that you see that you need to focus more on? What are the priorities here? We often hear that some of the crimes are associated with property crimes or violent crimes, but to the person who's been affected by it, all crimes are important. So I think we'll just flip the order here, and we'll start off with Ms. Cooper and work our way this way. So Ms. Cooper,
yes.
60 seconds.
I've heard about the property crimes a lot, but there's also assaults, physical body assaults on people, and then certainly sometimes it's just a stray bullet in the wrong place at the wrong time, and so those are concerns.
Okay, Mr. Mayo.
Well, you've heard me talk about murder, murder, murder. That is what's happened. That is an epidemic here. That's why we're on life support, because of all the murders that are taking place in the city of Monroe, and many of them are on the south side. And there doesn't seem to be a lot of concern about that. Who do we blame? We blame judges, we blame parents, we blame, and I say we, I'm saying the current administration, we blame everybody except looking in the mirror himself. We have to do something about it because there are our kids. There are our kids that's being murdered. There are women who's in casket. They're not vertical, they're horizontal. And to look over in the casket to see a young man who is, a young boy who is 16 years old will not see his next birthday. Now, parents are grieving, siblings are grieving, the community is grieving, and we have to do something about it. And I have a comprehensive plan to do that because we didn't have anything close to that while I served as mayor, regardless of what he says about how crime was once I was mayor. But that's not the case at all. Smoke and mirrors. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Ellis.
Yes, so first, we had to address the gang issue that was happening within Monroe. It was retaliatory gang violence that was happening, and with work with our federal partners, we've been able to move cases out of 4th JDC and move these up on federal charges to where these repeat violent offenders are now seeing some serious time, up to 8 to 10 to 12 years. But the challenge is always being locking up the same people for the same or more serious crimes. There were people who were out for 2 separate second-degree murder charges still on the streets that may one day run into their victim in a grocery store. So that was a challenge, and we needed them to see some real time. Secondly, what we're seeing now is a lot of domestics, and that's a challenge. Again, it goes back to people who are being let out and not seeing time to come back and commit the same or even worse offenses. And so we've stayed on top of that. We'll continue to stay on top of it and work with law enforcement agencies to be able to see that we put an end to it.
Thank you so much. And sort of a reminder to our viewers out there, you still have time to go to our poll, go to the QR code, and let us know what your issues are and what your concerns are, so we can report that at the very end here. So let's get back to our questioning here. And we're going to shift gears a little bit here into a different area. And while I realize that you don't directly control secondary, elementary education, it is a priority and ultimately affects our community. So let's start off with Mr. Mayo. How would you prioritize, say, funding or collaborations or influence? What would you do to sort of facilitate education for all citizens here?
Well, improving education is one of my priority areas, and I previously stated that early childhood is very important. If kids cannot read by the time they're 3rd grade, they're already left behind. They're already doing studies in which they're being able to looking at how many prisons that they can build, and that's important. Currently, and I'm just stating facts, the early childhood initiative that I brought to the city of Monroe has been done away with. Completely done away with the National League of Cities Strong Southern Community Initiatives. And that is something that is working now in other parts of the United States, is working in parts of this state, particularly in the southern region of our country, and that has to be done. We can do a lot of different programs, but we have to start with early childhood, and also I'm going to have an education liaison that I will appoint to make sure that they can oversee all of this.
Okay. Ms. Cooper, you have 60 seconds.
Yes, education is key for economic development, because a business that wants to come here and stay here, they're going to need an educated workforce. And so that's why we have to make sure all of our citizens are well educated. And when I think about public schools, you know, some of our students graduate from failing schools, and they're, you know, they don't have the skill set to get a job at that time, and they're not even interested in getting further education. So, yes, we will partner with all of the entities to be partners in making sure we have an educated workforce. That's why in my platform, it's about youth development programs all year long, where we are trying to make sure our students, our young children and young adults, don't end up in delinquency and crime.
Mr. Ellis?
As many of you know, I'm married to a lifelong educator, so we all as a household understand the importance of education as it relates to a community. One of the first things that we did was to stand up the Boys and Girls Club, because we saw the effects that COVID had on learning loss. And so the Boys and Girls Club are operating in our rec centers now for after-school tutoring. That's a CEA we entered in with the Monroe City Schools. Also, we do have an education liaison that works for us. That was a CEA signed with the Children's Coalition. And one of the main projects that we're going to work on is to expand early childhood opportunities within our rec centers. Most of our rec centers are empty during the day, so that is able to work with childhood providers to be able to spend those dollars instead of spending rent and light bills and things like that, to put those dollars where they're most needed, and that's programming for children. Our rec centers are perfect for that. They're easy accessible for our transit system. They're easily accessible to neighborhoods, and so we continue to do that work, and we look forward to continuing that work when we get back in 4 years.
Thank you, candidates. Let's continue on in a similar vein here. One of the things I've seen in traveling, not only throughout Louisiana but around the country, whenever you see a community that's unhealthy, you see economic disparities, you see education disparities, and Mr. Mayor, we'll start off with you here. What role do you play as mayor in improving, say, health care and eliminating some of those health disparities?
Well, most of you know that I have 2 adult children who are nurses at Ochsner. They do very well. They attended Grambling State University. We're proud of Ochsner. And also, most of you know that during the time when St. Francis was going through the challenges they were going to, they were going to move out of downtown, and we helped keep them downtown. From our Economic Development Fund, we were able to give them almost $600,000, and they were able to leverage that with DHH to $1.5 million. That is why now they're still downtown. Those are the type of things that we have to do. Even though we're in government, and as mayor of the city of Monroe and along with the city council, we still have to make sure that we partner with everybody in the city of Monroe, which includes our healthcare partners. And of course, St. Francis and Ochsner and others, I won't name them all, don't have time to name them all, but we'll have an opportunity to continue to work with them as we did when I served as your mayor, and when I'm able to serve as your mayor in the next 4 years. Thank you.
Ms. Cooper, you now have 60 seconds.
Yes, when I think about health care, I also think about, do we have healthy neighborhoods? Do we have quality air and quality water systems that are healthy? Are our schools healthy? Parks and environments, all of our environments. So all of our citizens, whatever they need, we want to be there to see that they are provided with what they need in order to be healthy in every way. Now, we do know this. We need to make sure that our citizens get the services they need, like mental health services. And we need to work with the state and federal government, because they oversee a lot of the health programs like Medicaid and Medicare and so forth. And we want to make sure our people have the information so that they can take advantage of these services, and especially mental health services.
Mr. Ellis, you have 60 seconds.
Some of you may know that I participated in Harvard's Graduate School of Design, the Mayor's Institute City of Design, and we talked about healthy cities. And it is the result of that was a $25 million raise grant application to make our city more walkable, more beautiful, through ADA accessible sidewalks that people can get to healthcare services, looking at transportation and how that relates to healthcare. Also, telemedicine. We have an RFP out right now for a fiber to the home initiative that will cover over 18,000 rooftops, also with open access Wi-Fi at our rec centers and parks. It also starts with Healthy Funro initiative that we started, worked with local health gurus that deal with exercise and mental health and well-being to be able to host events in our parks for our community to gather, to learn ways that they could exercise together, eat healthier, and keep moving to be a healthier Monroe.
Good. Now, moving on, and this is arguably one of my favorite topics, so I have to take a little bit of the moderator privilege here. You know, Louisiana was one of the first communities, one of the first states in America which experienced significant movement of populations as a result of climate change. While it may seem like a very distant issue, there are issues of mitigation and adaptation that are essential for our community. So we'll start with you, Ms. Cooper. What is your stance on environmental sustainability and potential impacts that our community may feel from climate change? You have 60 seconds.
That is a very important issue. And we must have mitigation procedures in place. We have a group that will oversee our mitigation efforts to make sure that we will not end up like we did in the 2016 flood, where the extreme flooding that happened. And so now we've been working diligently to come up with mitigation procedures to reduce or stop that from happening as we go forward. So it's a very important.
Okay. Mr. Ellis, you have 60 seconds on this.
So we've worked with our national partners and our statewide partners at the water campus. You've heard me talk about the Center for Climate Resiliency. Thanks to Congresswoman Letlow and Congressman Graves, we've now had legislation passed that will allow us to be able to apply for those fundings. What is this center? It looks at environmental runoff and how that disproportionately affects minority and poverty communities. It looks at the way that our water travels right now. From the floods of 2016 that we saw that water is moving faster in different places because of levees. Ultimately, we want to see that happen. How does this affect our drinking water sources? How does this affect the Sparta Aquifer? How can we protect those Sparta Aquifer for future growth for our entire region? So we've got some big ideas, and we've got some great partners to be able to work with and to bring this back home up here in Northeast Louisiana and be a model for the rest of the country.
Mr. Mayo, you have 60 seconds.
Well, the good thing about partnerships, you can work with your region as well as the state and also the federal government. I mentioned the U.S. Conference of Mayors because I've served on the U.S. Conference of Mayors and we talked about climate change. And Ms. Cooper mentioned the 2016 Great Flood, 100-year flood. We know it devastated so many folks. And so we were part of the resiliency plan in which we work with the Ouachita Parish Police Jury and other partners to put the money in place that now our community is enjoying, because that's very, very important. But we need to make sure that we understand that because of climate change, it's impacting all of us in a huge way. And we have to continue to be very, very looked in everything that we can do in all of the different areas to be able to get funding to be able to address the climate change, because it's not going to get better, it's going to get worse.
Thank you, candidates. Sort of a follow-up to that, from climate change, sort of the bigger issue, down to something certainly much more local. What are some of the environmental concerns, some of the issues that are faced in our community? Sometimes we hear issues about recycling or our wastewater, our drinking water. What are sort of your priorities there? We'll start off with Mr. Ellis, and we'll sort of work our way down from there. So some of those very specific issues for our community.
Yeah, so a lot of that starts with a lot of our brownfield sites that we have here within the city that have some environmental challenges. We've worked with the city of West Monroe to work collaboratively to be able to help clean up some of these sites. As you mentioned, litter and recycling is another big one that finds itself downstream and finds its way into our waterways. We have been working with people who have big plans here for recycling and really a model nationally of how to handle this litter. As they call it, it literally is a landfill killer. It's a way to be able to use the products that are used here that are waste and turn them into something viable. There's a lot of technology out there and new technologies. We just have to stay ahead of it, be aggressive about finding those and bringing them here to Monroe to help all of the solutions or the issues that we face.
Okay. Mr. Mayo, you have 60 seconds.
I mentioned the consent decree that the EPA put on us years ago. It was my administration that settled that consent decree. They gave us 10, 11 years, and we were able to pass a tax because it was unfunded mandate that we rededicated that tax, and it generated $400 million. As I mentioned, many of that's what you're experiencing now with all of the different projects that you see as it relates to sewer, and that is an issue. Right, coming into my neighborhood, the King O subdivision, there is a vent there, which I don't know why this administration put that vent in front of King O subdivision, but they did, and that's not acceptable. Also, I want to mention the old city dump. The old city dump has been done away 60 years ago, and this mayor decided to burn all kinds of debris there, and we had to call the DEQ to get it stopped. And I guess he was trying to sneak to do it, but we found out about it, and we finally got it stopped. And that's just not acceptable for the citizens of our great city.
Okay, Ms. Cooper, you have 60 seconds.
Yes. It's interesting you asked that question. Just the other day, I had a citizen asking me about the litter and the recycling programs. And she was asking me about making sure we have an effective litter program. And so there's a need, as she expressed. And then, you know, the extreme flooding we've already talked about in 2016. So, but we've made progress there, mitigation efforts, and to let that not happen again.
Thank you, candidates. I know it was a little off script, but I had to ask something that was so dear to me. Let's move on to something a little bit different here. And Mr. Mayo, we'll start with you on this one. You have 60 seconds to tell us about what measures you would implement to enhance transparency and better accountability in city government.
Well, I noticed that that's very important to all of us. Transparencies. I had public relations meetings all the time. We met with the press often. We also had press conferences every time that we had a city council meeting. Anytime that there was anyone that called from any media outlet, we always responded. We had the city had never had a public relations communications person, and for the first time they did under my administration. So I thought transparency and communication is very, very important to not only externally but also internally. And we'll continue to do that because it's very important that we're dealing with tax dollars and they need to know what's going on. And there was no question that I was not going to let anybody, not myself or any member of my administration, do things wrong, and we knew about it and didn't address it. And we did, and we'll continue to do so once you re-elect me as mayor.
Ms. Cooper, your 60 seconds starts now.
Yes. You always hear those words from me about transparency, accountability, and stakeholder input, because we have been elected to serve the people. We're their voice, and we want them to express themselves. We want to hear from them, and we all work together to bring about this change we need. See, we need community input, that buy-in from them. That's going to help us be most effective. And so, yes, those words are important to me. I worked on the school board when I was elected to the Monroe City School Board back in 2018. That was something that we made sure, where we had committee meetings, where we could vet the business of the board, and we asked for stakeholder input as well.
Moving on to Mr. Ellis, your 60 seconds starts now.
One of the initiatives that we instilled was our constant feedback loops from our realtor meetups, small business meetups. Everything in our parks and recreation plans came from you, our public, through multiple community engagement, because those plans are yours. Those are your visions that you got to see transformed, as I call it, the box top to the puzzle, and those can be found at monroe.city. The other thing that we're going to add an extra layer of accountability that we're going to instill the next 4 years is called Open Checkbook. It's an open checkbook form of government where you, the citizen, can go online and see every procurement contract, every check that has been cut from the city. So you'll have a bird's eye view of what the city's been up to. Of course, we constantly are creating feedback loops to hear this. Fridays with Friday, every other Friday or when I have time, I go and knock doors. When we have a complaint or a praise, I'll go knock doors, not just to campaign, but to figure out what the needs of the citizens are. And I've enjoyed that.
Thank you again to our candidates. And a reminder quickly to our viewers, you still have time to participate in our poll, and you'll get the results here shortly. So candidates, I know you're going to be glad to hear this. This is your last question. So let's get on to our final question here. And this is going to be a little different here. And Ms. Cooper, we're going to start with you. How do you plan to support small businesses and entrepreneurs, not just attracting the larger companies, but we have a lot of good quality mom and pop entrepreneurs. What is going to be your effort there?
Yes. Yeah, we're going to want the large corporations too, and the big projects too, but small businesses will be very important to our economic development. For this reason, you know, they're really the fuel for our economy. And we want those businesses to be successful, and we will do all we can to help them be successful so that they can offer jobs and benefits for our citizens. And so yes, small businesses, even the minority businesses and women businesses, we will see that they have the resources they need to be successful, because we know of the value that they will bring to the table as far as jobs and benefits.
Thank you. Mr. Ellis, you have 60 seconds.
I was raised by a small business owner. I was a small business owner myself. You heard me earlier say, and many of you will laugh when you hear me say this because you understand what it means to sign a check on the front, to put everything you have into a business to chase a dream, and sometimes going paycheck to paycheck. So I understand what that relationship with the city should look like. And sometimes it's as simple as the city just getting out of the way. We heard your request for a streamlined permitting process. Have it faster for you to be able to take your dream and open up a door. And we've worked really hard to do that. And I'm proud to say that we're getting great feedback. Again, you heard me mention in just 3.5 short years. Remember, shortly after a global pandemic, we have recovered over 450 new businesses with over 2,000 plus jobs that have been created, increased sales tax revenues, so it's working.
Mr. Mayo, you now have 60 seconds.
Well, I mentioned earlier that my background is business. I graduated from ULM, as I mentioned, with a BBA. I've been a small businessman for over 20 years, so I do understand the concerns of small businesses. We have to keep doing the things that's going to help us help these small businesses, such as working with Small Business Development Center at ULM. That is the state office building. There are many incubators that's in there, and I support them. In fact, I support about 3 or 4. I have a consulting firm. I'm a small businessman now. Also, we'll have an incubator on the south side of the city because we need that, because we don't have that, because there are many minority and women-owned businesses that are crying out because they're not getting the support. And we all know that. I don't have to keep saying that, but they're not getting the support. They're wanting the support, and we're going to give them that support. The Monroe Regional Black Chamber of Commerce and anybody else that's a small business, because small business is the core of any community, and Monroe is no exception.
Thank you, candidates. Well, that's it for tonight's questions. And before we hear our candidates' closing statements, let's take a look at the final results of tonight's live poll. Ashley?
All right, before heading into our candidates' closing statements, let's see what everyone at home has decided. Looks like we might have a small glitch or technical error in this, and so maybe we can go ahead and go back to the closing statements, Dr. Sutherland, and then hopefully come back to the final results of the poll.
Sure. Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do, since we've got a little bit of time, and certainly I've never had a politician tell me that they don't want more time. Why don't we afford them an extra 30 seconds apiece on their closing statements? How about that? So let's start off. We started with you on the opening. Let's start with Betty. So you've got 1 minute for your closing statements.
Great, great. Esteemed citizens, we have a crucial decision to make in a matter of weeks. We will choose the individual who will guide our city's path for the next 4 years. We must turn away from the confines of the past and cast our gaze toward a future led by superior leadership. I envision a city that is not only safe and prosperous, but also dynamic, with opportunities for growth and jobs with benefits, and a city united in progress. My prayer at this moment is, dear God, bless our city and our citizens. So I'm asking for your vote. Number 23 on the ballot, Betty Ward Cooper, Mayor of Monroe.
Thank you, Ms. Cooper. Let's work our way this way now. Mr. Mayo, you have 60 seconds.
Thank you very much, citizens. As I mentioned, thank you for allowing me to serve this great community for so many years. It's not so great right now because of the crime. God has been good to me and my family. I give him the praise and I give him the glory. The reason I'm running, because we need to save our city, because it's on life support. It's in a crisis, primarily because of crime and because of someone who does not have the experience to do the things that need to do to continue to move our community forward. Look at the crisis internally. That's one of the reasons why all these unions supporting somebody else, and the police department had to get their arms pulled to be able to do so. But the fire department, as I mentioned, they decided not to. But we were able to have, you see, management opportunities. We've done that. We're going to deal with crime, 1,000 jobs for our youth during the summer, get them off the street. And that's going to take care of a lot of the issues that we have relative to crime. Thank you very much.
Mr. Ellis, your closing statements.
I first want to start off by thanking you, the citizens, for blessing me with the opportunity to serve you. Everywhere I go across the country, I am so proud of each and every one of you and to represent you. Promises made, promises kept. You sent me in 4 years ago, and we have delivered on each one of the promises that we've made to you. The evidence is all around you. Gone are the days of apathy and the idea that we can't achieve. There is a new energy, a new vision, and just an overall attitude here in Monroe. You've often heard the statement that says, there is a reason your windshield is bigger than your rearview mirror, because where we're headed is so much bigger than where we've been. We need 4 more years to keep going, Monroe. Let's keep going. Let's keep making these improvements, and I want to work for you and stay committed until the job is done.
Thank you, candidates, and that ends tonight's debate. We want to thank everyone who voted in our polls and gave us their voice on who they look for or what they look for in a mayoral candidate, and we hope tonight's debate will help you and your family make an educated decision when you vote. And with that, have a great evening.